All right guys, we're back. We're at the Loganville Car Wash. We're gonna hang up 2 vending machines today. I got a 5-column tree machine. I got a car care kit machine. We wanna get more vending on the lot so that we can make some more revenue for this site. I'm gonna show you how to wire in a transformer. I'm gonna show you how to wire in both these vending machines. I'm also gonna show you how you can hang them yourself and try to avoid some of the costs of paying somebody to do it for you. Hopefully this tutorial video will give you an idea of how to do this so that you can do it yourself and not have to pay for somebody to come to your site and do it. Or it might just show you some tips and tricks on how to hang something for yourself, or even how to fix something. So let's get into it. We're gonna do a brief walkthrough of how I'm gonna do this, what I'm gonna do, why I'm doing what I'm doing, what to consider, and then we're gonna get the work done, and then we'll show you the finished product. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take a measurement outside to get an idea of where we wanna hang these vending machines, these Laurels. So what I did was, with my tape measure, I went to the corner edge of the wall of the back of the building, stretched it out, and I have a mark here at 15 feet. This is going to be my blank canvas. We're going to hang both those machines right here in this area. So from the corner of the wall, measured out 15 foot, and now we're going to go inside and we're going to check that measurement inside to make sure that's a clear area to poke through the wall to get our electric out to the vending machines. All right, so we got the measurement from the edge of the door opening to our 15-foot mark in here on the floor, and I can eyeball that over. And you can see we have an open area, access to our panel. We're going to be able to come out to a 4x4x6 box, transformer inside that, poke a hole through the wall, run our 24 volts through the wall into the Laurel vending machine, and then daisy chain the 2 together. We're picking this area because it's a blank open canvas here again, plenty of room to work. Plenty of room to be able to change that transformer out at a later date, or fuse if we need to, and it's just easy access for us. All right, so we're gonna hang the big one first. That's the 5-column tree machine. So how I'm gonna do this is, I got 3 tight head 5 gallons here. I have them stacked up. That's like the perfect height for the shelf for somebody to take their product out of the machine. We'll get this unboxed. We're gonna set the Laurel machine on top of this. This is how I'm gonna hold it in place and balance it. We will get the holes drilled, then we'll get it fastened to the wall, and then we will blow through the wall to be able to run our wires. We're gonna hang the machines first. That way the machines are hung exactly where we want them, and we don't have any miscalculation on measurement on the inside, punching the hole out through. We know we have plenty of room inside, so that is going to be the best way to do this. If you were a little skeptical on room inside, I would say put your hole through, then hang your machines, but we have a lot of freedom here. We got a lot of open space. So we're going to hang the machine first. That way we get it exactly where we want, and then we are going to wire to it. All right, guys, so we got it up on our Kleen-Rite 5 gallons. I'm going to get a level across it. We're gonna make sure it's level on the wall, and then I'm gonna go ahead, come in here with a Sharpie, and I'm gonna mark where I need to put my holes. And then we're gonna take it back down. We'll get those holes drilled and get it ready to actually hang by itself. All right, so I got my holes marked, got the machine down off our pails. I got a hammer drill with a masonry bit. I'm gonna pre-drill these holes. We're gonna get the machine back up, and then we're gonna sink some tap cons into the wall, hold the machine fast, then we're gonna get the other machine hung, get the electric run, get it done. So let's get these holes drilled. All right, let's get this machine hung. All right, so we got it back up on our jugs. I did sneak one screw in quick just to hold this in place so we can make the video for you guys. What I'm using is just a tap con and a fender washer. And I'm just gonna get all of them started, and then I will make sure it's level and then send them home. Now, we gotta remember that with a tap con, we don't necessarily want to make that as tight as possible, because then we'll break out the concrete. So just remember that when you're doing this. All right, so we got a jug out. It's hanging on its own free will on the 8 tap cons that we have holding it to the wall. We're just gonna double check level, make sure it's gonna look good hanging here, and then we're gonna finish these screws off, tightening everything down. You can always take this side mech bracket out to make it a little easier to access the screws in the back here as well. Just make sure to plug your push pad back in. All right, so I got my speed square. We're gonna end up daisy chaining electrically these two machines together from one source of 24 volts. So to be able to do that, what I need to do is I need to get a hole in the side of this cabinet. I'm gonna get a hole in the side of the other cabinet, and we are gonna connect them with electrical PVC. So I'm just gonna mark this out. Remember that measurement, mark the second one out, drill that one out as well, and then we'll cut our piece for in between, hang the machine, and then we will be pulling the wire through both of those machines together. So I'm just gonna grab, I looked inside, I can see that I have clear space back there. So I'm gonna go at 2 inches by 2 inches, just for ease of remembering my measurement and for marking. So you could use a unibit, you could use a drill bit if you could find one big enough. I have a bit here, it's an auger style bit, and we are going to use that to punch a hole in the side of this cabinet. It's actually made to cut through metal. You can pick them up at Home Depot if you want. But this is just going to make a little bit shorter work of drilling a hole big enough for our conduit inside of this. Again, you could use a unibit if needed. All right, so we got the car care machine out on the ground here. We're going to get our hole punched through. That way we can hang everything up level and the way that it needs to be. So that measurement again was 2 by 2. Let's get this hole in the side and we'll get these machines hung. All right guys, so we're gonna cut our connection piece for in between the boxes before we hang this box. That way we can get everything lined up nice and straight. I want 4 inches in between the boxes, just for a little space for the doors to swing open and whatnot. Our coupling pieces have a 1 inch insertion depth. So if I want 4 inches in between, we have 2 couplings, that's 6 inches. I'm gonna mark out this 6 inches. And now we'll have our 4 inch gap in between the two because we cut this at 6 inches. So let's get this all put together, get this machine up on the wall and drill some holes. All right, so you can see I got a little contraption of stacked pieces here to get everything level with the other machine. So now I'm gonna level this machine out, mark my holes, take it back down, we'll drill them out, we'll get this hung, and then we'll get to the electrical part. All right guys, so I put the two top screws in, hung the second box. We got our electrical connection together. I'm just gonna put my other two screws in, take the top two out, put my fender washers on, and then we're gonna head inside and get this electrical done. So let's get this taken care of. All right guys, so we're inside the wash. I got my panel here that I'm gonna grab my 120 from to feed my 120 to 24 volt transformer for power to the Laurel units. So I'm gonna pop this front panel off. All right, now I gotta get this internal panel off so that we'll be able to see where we're wiring to. Now I'm not shutting the power down to this panel, because if I turn the power off to this entire panel, we'll lose all kinds of lights and functions. So we're going to leave the power on. We're just going to be careful of what we're doing. There's no need to be afraid, but there is a need to be careful. Now that we have the panel off, I can find an empty breaker, which I have a bunch of spare breakers in here that I can use. I have this 30 amp breaker right here that is almost directly in line with where I need to mount my box to add in my transformer. So I'm going to pick this breaker, and what I'm going to need to do is pop a hole in the side of this box so that we can run a conduit from this box over to the box that our transformer is going to be mounted in. So let's get all that stuff fit up here quick, and then we'll drill some holes, and then we're going to show you how to wire this. All right, so we got our transformer box up. We're connected into the breaker panel. I'm going to go ahead and pull my 120 wire through. I'm using 12-2, so I'm just going to ease this through that conduit, making sure I'm not touching anything inside the breaker panel that's hot. I'm going to leave myself more than enough on this side and on this side. And we're actually going to go ahead and push our 24 volt wire through the wall into the vending machine. That way we don't get everything hooked up inside here and then have to try to struggle around that. So I'm going to go ahead. A trick for pushing wire through a wall or a tight space is to bend it over on itself and then crimp that down a little bit, and that'll give you a nice little pushing nub to be able to force that through the wall. All right, so we got our wire through. I'm gonna pull enough that I know I can reach my board, and we're gonna head back inside and get that wired up. All right guys, so we got all of the wiring pulled. Now it's time to hook everything up. If you haven't hooked up to a panel box before hooking up to a breaker, I'm just gonna walk you through that here quickly. All these lugs are hot. Everything in here is hot. When I say hot, I mean it has power. So we want to pick a breaker that we're going to use, and we want to turn that breaker off. Okay, so now we're down to the 12-2 wire. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife, and I'm going to cut into that sheathing to expose the wires on the inside. If my knife was a little sharper, it would go a little smoother. So, down here is my neutral, and then obviously my hot comes off of the breaker. On the opposite side is my ground. So what we're going to do is pull enough wire so that between the two of them stretched out, I can reach the neutral and my hot. So when we're hooking our wires up to the panel, you always want to hook your neutral up first. I typically always hook my neutral up first, and then I'm going to hook my ground up, and then I will hook my hot wire up. So I'm just getting a quick guesstimate length on that. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight. We don't want to pull it too tight. We want to give ourselves a little bit of breathing room when we're doing this. Okay, so now we got the neutral hooked up. Now I'm going to get this ground wire over. Again, I'm leaving enough room and enough extra wire in case something needs to be changed later. Moved out of the way to add something else. It is okay to double up a neutral. It is okay to double up a ground on a lug if you're running out of space or you only have enough wire to make it to that lug. We just don't want to double up any of our hot circuits. We want all those to be separate if possible. All right, now that we got a neutral hooked up, we got a ground hooked up, I'm going to go ahead and land my hot wire. Remember, we have that breaker turned off. I'm going to leave myself a little extra. I'm not going to leave all this there. And when we tie this in, we strip that wire back. We don't want a ton of wire hanging out because remember, once that's connected to the breaker and the breaker's turned on, that entire piece of exposed copper wire is hot. So we want to leave that insulation. We want to have just enough stripped that when we tie it into the breaker, where it's tied to the breaker is stripped back. All right, so we're going to get this transformer put in. Again, I'm cutting that outside casing back off the 120 wire, or 12-2. I'm going to expose enough of that I can wire nut it to our transformer. All right, I got a 120 volt to 24 volt AC, 40 volt amp transformer here. So ground, and on this version, the hot and neutral don't matter which one's which. We just need to make sure that they're hooked up. So I'm gonna hook up my ground first. I think. And when I'm putting these wire nuts together, I'm just making sure that both ends of the wire are close to or about the same length. You don't want to have one that's twice as long as the other. You want those to be close to the same length, so when you twist this together, those wires twist together at the same rate. So now that we have our 120 hooked up, we can focus on the 24 volt. Now I'm not gonna cut this short inside. We're gonna pull it through the rest of the way outside. That way I know I have enough length. I mean, we double checked that when we were out there, but better safe than sorry. So in this bundle, I have a black, a red, and a white. I'm going to use the black and the white. I'm going to snip away that red so we don't get confused. Now our new transformer has 2 terminal screws on it for these wires to go to. So I'm going to put 2 wiring forks on the end here, and then we will wire that fast to the transformer. All right, so a trick is if you have to use a fork terminal big enough to fit on a post, but your wire's a little too small to fill that up and get a good crimp on it, you can strip it twice as long, bend it over on itself, twist it down, and then get it into that fork terminal to fill that space up so that you know it won't slide loose. Get these 2 set up, crimped down, wired up, and then we'll go outside and wire up the vending machines. We're going to get the 24 volts hooked up. Even though there's no power here, I'm still going to follow suit of neutral first, hot second. Practice makes perfect. We always want to get our neutrals hooked up first, then our power. All right, so I got all the extra pulled out. I left a little bit of extra in that box in case I need it for some reason down the road. So now I'm going to get this back behind my shelves. Make sure I have enough to go to the board. Clip that. I'm going to need to take this out of the way so that I can get this wire pulled. So with the 2 screws, we'll be able to move this Digimax board and the bracket out of our way. Now I can get my hand down inside. Pull that up through. All right, so I got the Digimax board back in. I got my 2 wires, my wire from the transformer coming out, my wire that's going to go from this vendor over to my second vendor. I have more than enough wire here, so we're going to get that stuff stripped down. I'm actually going to just clip those ends off to get nice straight ends. Get that casing off. Remember, like I said, inside we're going to use the black and the white, so we know that we can snip both of our red ends off. Now I'm just going to strip this back. Okay. So now we're going to daisy chain these together, and what I mean by that is I am going to land both sets of these wires on one board, and that effectively is going to take power from the transformer to this board and also apply it to these wires and bring it over and apply it to this board as well. Instead of having to pull two wires through, the transformer carries more than enough power for us to be able to do it this way. I'm going to trim them back a little bit. I don't want too much of that hot copper sticking out of this terminal. All right, so we got the first one wired up. Let's get this wire tucked in. And again, I'm going to leave myself a little extra here, but we're doing the same exact thing. Stripping this back. Getting rid of that red wire. We're using black and white here. Cut them a little shorter. All right, so now we got all of our power wired up. Let's hop back inside. We're gonna check the breaker, turn the power on, and come out and check everything outside here. All right, so let's get this breaker turned on. We're gonna turn the breaker on, we're gonna check the machines, and then we'll put the panel on. We're not gonna put the panel on first. We wanna make sure everything works before we button everything up. So let's get this turned on. All right, guys, I gotta get these brackets on yet and the locking ear tabs. You guys don't wanna watch that. It's just a bolt fast deal. But if you have any questions about vending machines or vending products, give us a call at Kleen-Rite, and that's gonna wrap it up on this 5-column tree machine and the car care kit machine. So give us a call and we'll get you fixed up.
Kleen-Rite.